I'd see something on the local news or read something in the paper or see something online, or I was getting email tips by then, by the late 90s, and I would just say, I'm going to go do this. And then people say, oh, they have this big statue and do this ritual at Bohemian Grove. And I'm like, I don't believe that. And so people, listeners sent me old magazine articles and stuff where CBS reporter arrested and all that. And so that's a whole nother interesting story.
John Ronston, right?
Yes.
He went with you.
Yes.
As I was talking to him probably 2004 or 5 about a book that he had written.
Them.
Yeah. And he said, I don't know what your relationship is with him, but he said, there's a lot of stuff I don't agree with Alex Jones, but I went with him. He said, I saw it.
Yeah. And
he said, I thought Alex was crazy. He said, but I saw it. What did you see? And how did you get in?
Okay, it's a 2,700 acre redwood grove in the most beautiful place in America, Sonoma County. It's about 15 miles west of Santa Rosa, and it's on the Russian River, and it's a huge uncut redwood grove, just as big as the ones you see in the national parks.
Wow.
So it's a gorge with redwood trees at one entrance, and the other end exit isn't an entrance or exit. It's just a cliffside over the Russian River. And they've got over 100 camps in it. Some are big and nice, depending on how elite you are. They have like the chalet where world leaders and royalty go up on the hill. But they're all basically log cabins and open bars. And really, it's a big art thing. At the time, I went with the sensational stuff of the occultic stuff and the ritual that they do on the middle of July every year on I guess it's called Midsummer's Eve or whatever. And that's what blew up with the evangelical Christians and stuff, and I am a Christian. And definitely it's occultic, and there's vibes of that everywhere. But really, Mark Twain founded it in the 1880s, 1870s. And then President Taft started going there by railroad, and then the Republican establishment took it over. And so there was kind of a Germanic, Druidic spinoff of Skull and Bones that kind of took it over through the Republicans and Skull and Bones members. And so it kind of has that seal on it of the Skull and Bones Germanic mystery school, hyper Masonic, super secret, inner Masonic stuff. But really, it's 1,000 members and 1,000 guests. And when I was there, I saw Danny Glover from a distance. I saw Clint Eastwood, and I didn't run up because there's security everywhere. And I only snuck in. I snuck in during the day, went around the security in the woods. They've beefed it up a lot now. But people get in easily. Not now, it's really beefed up, but they always catch you because reporters, there's been hundreds of articles. They always walk up and start asking questions. And they go, well, who are you with? What are you doing? I didn't do that. I snuck in, tried to just go, sit down in one of the outside areas and not be noticed. And Ronson thought it was a joke, but he had an insider that was a member. And so Ronson snuck in. After he saw me get in, he went in with the member that had all the code words and all the stuff as a guest, but not as an official guest. And then Ronson had me sign a contract, but later he talked about it, so I can. He said, we, for liability, can't shoot the footage, and we've seen you shoot some hidden footage. A little DV can and a fanny pack. They didn't have little tiny cameras back then, as you know, for kids out there. And I had to climb up on the edge of a redwood, knot root and kind of get above the people and shoot. That's why it's all canted and cameras falling over and things. But it's still dramatic footage. And so I got in, tried to keep to myself, had sheriff's deputies and Secret Service twice while I was just sitting over an overlook and over in the woods, just at a table. I even brought a book with me so it looked like I was just hanging out. They're like, who are you with? What's going on? I'm like, and I had enough of the inside stuff that I'd read in some of the literature. I said, I'm with the Hillbillies, because that's a Texas-style camp where the Bushes go. They said, really? Okay, well, who are you here with? And I said, I'm here with Ron. Yeah, and they go, okay. And the Secret Service came over and questioned me another time. And I said, that's it, I've been questioned twice. So I came down off because it takes, it's a couple miles down. I came off the overlook with the Secret Service questioned me over the Russian River. And I got into the woods, got to the first camp, and nobody was there. And I climbed up underneath the log cabin deck, and there were like literally centipedes and spiders. It was like Indiana Jones' Temple of Doom, but not as bad. But it was quite a few, and I guess because that's where they are. They're under the house. And so I wait till the light starts going down, and I had my map, and I'd only gotten in some and then gone trying to get it, because most of the camps are up at the start and up the hill. I'd gotten away from civilization waiting for nighttime, because I was in there about 4 or 5 hours, 4.5 hours. I hang out a few hours underneath the log cabin. And again, people say, well, why is there not footage of that? It was little hour tapes. I'm having to start it and stop it. So I got myself going in, walking down there, got the overlook, tape stops. I know there's cameras, which I later saw and they later admitted, so I don't reload it there. I just act really calm. I'm kind of hitting the button on and off. I go down, find the first camp, climb under it, reload it, get it ready, get it set, have like a handkerchief inside hanging over the front of the lens, because there's a hole cut in the fanny pack, those little DV cams. And it's getting dark. Okay, I think I can blend in. And so it's twilight. I've got the map. It's this side road right here. I start walking. People are starting to come out of camps. They're walking. And, oh my gosh, there's the pond and there's the owl, the little lake, and there's bats flying around. It's twilight. But people are talking to each other. They're looking. I see Danny Glover. I'm walking. There's now all these big crowds of men coming in, hundreds and hundreds. And I say, okay, I'm gonna go through them and hide somewhere until it gets dark. They're going to question me. People are looking, hey, because they all kind of know each other. I go up the hill, and then down here are the biggest redwoods, the ones you can drive cars through. The ones they
Yeah.
And there's all these tables, and there's still people eating, and they're playing Hall of the Mountain King. Dun 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 dun. And I look, there's a symphony playing, and it's just twilight, the light coming through, and bats and frogs chirping. And I'm like, this is a badass party. And so I kind of walk up the hill. There was a whole kind of gay vibe going on too. I had some of the greenskeepers, guys, they go, hey, baby, and whistle at me. That went on a few times. Back then I was pretty good looking. And so I go, okay, it's getting dark. So I come back down the hill. Now almost everybody is flooding out from eating their dinner on these big picnic tables that I was going up the hill looking down on. They're coming out and going down to the owl. I go around them, wait till they're there, get up behind the crowd, but there's men standing in front of me, so I kind of climb up on the edge of one of the roots and shoot the video. And it was about an hour long, so we got it on the tape, because I got shots of the people. I have shots all this, down there while the music's playing. Then I've got the shot of the ritual, and then I'm sitting there going, okay, it's an owl. This is more theater, but the occult is what theater comes from, and TV and everything is. Anything occult, for those that don't know, is just pre-Christ or, pre-Christianity. It just means hidden, because the mystery schools are hidden. And so they mixed in Babylonian, Druidic, Canaanite, Faustian stuff in the hour. They bring out a hearse that's horse-drawn with the effigy of a child. They call on the goddess to come, and they call on these other gods to come, so it's kind of an amalgamation, like the Bible says, of all these religions. They then put the child there on the effigy. But back then, I later learned, because I got some of their annals, these guys would die and their widows would mail me annals. And then once people didn't know they had annals, then they shot up in the market. And then when people were selling them on eBay for $5,000 a piece.
What are the annals?
Every 10 years, they put a big, thick book out of the annals of Bohemian Grove.
Okay.
So as I got those annals later, I'm kind of skipping ahead, I learned, that was Walter Cronkite that was doing the voice of the owl. Wow. So they're inside the owl, and it's got slits they can look out of with a sound control, and you've got like famous actors and people doing the voices, so that's very interesting. And I'm not saying they're all devil worshippers, even bad. It's more of a crazy art festival, but there is an occultic thing to it.
I wrote a book called The Eye of Moloch, and in it I posited a theory, and I have no idea if it's true or not, but I posited a theory that most of the people are going and they're just having a good time. They have no idea. But there are some that understand what is being done, and that it is an actual ancient ritual, but people are doing it for the most part because they think it's fun. Would you agree with that or not?
Well, that's why you're Glenn Beck. I'm up here speeding through trying to just give you all the intel. You're really good at summing it all up there. No, that's exactly what it is. And that's the nature of the occult, or secret societies or intelligence agencies. Is there's the inner group that knows. That's exactly what I was going to say earlier, is they're just recruiting really cool, interesting musicians and people. Even, Kid Rock talked about being there. And they're like, hey, kid, you're here to play music for us. And that's exactly how it is. So they're there getting an eye on people for 2 weeks. Then they have other club times they go, but it's that 2 weeks, the second half of July, to kind of examine the produce and see who they could promote, who they could use. And absolutely, I've had occult experts look at it. I've read your book, I've read other books. And definitely, I was sitting there in the crowd thinking, they're not taking this really seriously as it was starting. I said, this is just fun, because I hadn't seen the whole ritual yet, and I hadn't had time to go back and look what they were actually saying. But there were a lot of the men in the crowd, when the light was on their faces, the torches, right by me going, and one time I said, that's really neat. It's a very important ritual. And you could actually barely on the tape hear it. This is a very important ritual. And this is some billionaire, you could tell. And I was recognizing a lot of them, but, I know that guy, but you couldn't place them. Mm-hmm. And some of these really rich, powerful people, and I was looking around in the light, because I'm there at the back. There's a few behind me and in front of me, and I'm looking at their faces. And I'm like, whoa, this is like I'm at church, but this is like I've been.
So what is the ritual that they do? What is the meaning behind it?
It's basically the oldest story that he was do over and over again. I mean, you have in the time of Abraham, God saying, "Go get me a ram and sacrifice it," because that was food, that was meat, that was a big deal to give this up, and to say God's number one. And then God says, "Give me your son," actually, to see if he'll go all the way. And the angel stops him. And if you look at every culture and society, that's basically where sacrifice comes from. So this is more of what they did in ancient England and in Europe with the sin eaters, where a person had died and they would put a piece of bread on their stomach, and they would have someone come in that would eat it who was willing to take their sin. So instead of Christ taking on our sins as the ultimate sacrifice, they put the sins on the effigy of a child, and then it begs for its life. And they say, no, for the next year, our cares are gone. All of our problems are put on this. And then these men that are taking it serious, some people are like, interesting. Those are the guests. The members that are serious, and I'd say it was about a third of them just from the group I was looking at, because it would light up quite a bit. I could see their faces. And I'm not looking into the camera. I'm looking at them. And they were trying to transmute their problems onto this ritual to have, you reap what you sow, or karma, however they see it, pass over them and be put into this effigy that they then burn. And it was very hardcore. So, and then again, after I saw that, I brought it to some theologians, but also mainline historians, and they basically all said the same thing. They said this is going back to 4,000 years ago in Egypt and walking right through all these different Molech, all these different gods.
Yep.
And then it ends with Druids in Europe, and then Faust, which is Dr. Faust, probably a fictional thing, but it's a story of, can he at the end escape the devil? And of course he really could have, but he didn't know he could. And so they're saying, no, we do know, and we are Faust, and we're beating the devil. So it was a very sophisticated, very dark, beyond black magic, because they're not, it's an effigy, but they're not like trying to hurt somebody with this energy they've built, if you believe in that. They're trying to put it, of the bad things they've already done, into this interdimensional cauldron, basically, and then send it to another plane. That's how I would describe it.
What is their goal? Are these, like, if you look at the WEF, people say, well, that is just, those are just people going up to ski, and they have no real power. We can now see the results of their work with, the Great Reset and everything else. Those things are now implemented. So that con of they don't have any power is over. What are these people trying to do?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I remember the New York Times in 2012. I'm in Chantilly, Virginia, covering Bilderberg. It's this big conference center, golf course, shut down. There's helicopters, there's Marines, there's Secret Service everywhere, guys talking in their submachine guns. We have it all on tape, put films out, and you were covering it some of the time, and Drudge was, and that was it. And they would have articles saying we were making it up to that point. And they had a New York Times article that Jones was basically having hallucination, that he was in the woods in Virginia, that there was a global meeting of elites. So back then it didn't exist. Then, because of you covering it, and I'm giving credit, you covered it, and so did Drudge. All of a sudden they went, okay, it's there, but it's no big deal. They started then putting the list out of their agenda and the members, but not the guests. And so that's the political arm at the top of the pyramid. And you have the heads of the CFR, the heads of the Travel Commission, the head of the EU, the head of the UK. I was there once, the King of Spain, because I stayed in the building after it was supposedly shut, and they threw me out. And they go, dun, 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 and here comes the King of Spain walking in the front as I'm going out. Just wild stuff. And I got footage of David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, helicopters landing. Not just there, I covered it in Europe, I covered it in England, I covered it in Canada, I covered it in Istanbul, Turkey, I covered it in Chantilly twice, and the heads of all the other big global management corporate systems, the Trilateral Commission, CFR, they're all there. And if you look at the 100 members, it's the heads of all the major top 100 corporations, the heads of the boards. Mm-hmm. And then you learn most of them are going to Bohemian Grove. And then Helmut
Kohl.
It was Helmut Schmidt, I think, before him, when it was still West Germany, but it was Helmut Kohl after him. In fact, my producers over there, this memory, I don't want to get this wrong. Look up Helmut Schmidt, German chancellor. But yeah, he wrote a book that I have a copy of that you can't even find, Men and Power as a Political Retrospective. And in the book, he says, we have our own, I don't get the chancellor's name wrong, but it wasn't Kohl. He goes, we have our own groves where we do our own druidic rituals, and we love them, but Bohemian Grove's the best. So it's a real, Skull and Bones presidents went and made it a Skull and Bones hangout. Mm-hmm. So if you wonder what Skull and Bones do once they leave Yale, this is their playhouse. And so it's really an extension of Skull and Bones. And so whether, whereas you see Hollywood and people, they're into different types of occult, flat out Satanism or mysticism or Kabbalah or stuff like that. When you get into the Republican leadership, at least in old Skull and Bones, they go to church. I'm not saying that they might be Christians. I don't know, but
right.
but on their but when they're not at their day job, they are very serious death cult members. I mean, that's what they call it, the Order of Death. And then you see the Nazis wearing the same thing. It's there's something to it.
I think we're experiencing a death cult now. I mean, I think it's Malthusian at its nicest. It's an absolute death cult that we're dealing with now. I mean, the love of blood, from abortion to gender mutilation to war, it's remarkable how this cult is just all about death.
They believe, from their own writings and statements, people that I know are into this occult organization, but in their public statements, that they are the alpha apex predator. And that just like if you're in a city that borders woods and you don't have any coyotes or wolves or mountain lions anymore, the deer overpopulated, they fall apart. They see it as they're the wolves doing us a favor, culling the sheep. And that it's their job through social Darwinism that, as you said, comes out of Malthus. And Malthus just said, starve the poor, give them diseases, crowd them all together, societal collapse within 100 years. He was wrong. You're right. He was nice compared to them who directly dumb you down and poison you and want to get rid of you. And when you actually study this deeper, they believe they're doing us a favor. But when you look at their affect and their own families, their behavior, they're really sinister, greedy, hateful people who pretend like they're filling this niche, this need of the social Darwinists. For people that don't know what that is, obviously the robber barons in the 1880s, 90s, and into the trust busting, had articles written and books written about, hey, it's good that we're enslaving and cheating and forcing other companies to shut down and monopolies, because that's just the way it is. Might makes right. And so now they've had to hide it because of the kind of classical liberalism that was against that. They then became liberalism so they can wrap themselves in that when they truly are the death cult. And if you had to use anything close to it, it's a high-tech Nazi-type operation wrapped in a liberal package.